I opened up CapCut yesterday, and I'm like, okay, let's get some editing done, right? Boom, it says it's not available. And I'm like, what? I look this up. I'm like, what's going on? Is my computer off or whatever? No, they got banned. TikTok, they are owned by TikTok. And I'm like, you're kidding me. I've been using TikTok or whatever, the same company. I'm just in complete shock. Anyway, I'm trying to scramble right now, trying to figure out how the heck I'm going to get this even edited. I might be talking to myself right now here, but we're going to find a way. I tried DaVinci Resolve, and I guess my computer isn't supported by it, so who knows? I may have to airdrop this thing. I might have to go hit up a typewriter or an 8-track player. I don't, either which way, we're going to find a way. I'll tell you that right now. Hope you guys are having a really cool day, though. My name's G-Sling. I'm doing my thing. We have one rounder today with trades. Oh, we're going to be bringing some trades. You better believe it, man. It's going to get wild. It's going to get crazy. Tomorrow, we're going to bring at least the 3-rounder, barring that I can edit and all those things once I find it something. Let's get right into this, though. Let's enter the draft machine learning system here and start this thing up for the Tennessee Titans at number 1. I told you they're going to be trades. I'm a man of the word, and I'm going to do it here with the New York. Oh, they already even got it prepared for me. I don't even have to do nothing. See that machine learning, that AI technology? It's listening to me right now. And with that number 1 overall pick from the Tennessee Titans, let's go and trade down. I'm not forcing a quarterback here from Tennessee. They're in a little bit of a rebuild. Whereas the Giants, hey, you got more cornerstones. You got Malik Neighbors coming on here as a true number 1. Let's go get him a quarterback. Now, here's where it gets interesting. What's the cost, right? G-Sling, you're saying to yourself, uh-oh, here's where the getting gritty gets cool. I'm going pick number 34 for the Giants, and that's it. Maybe you throw in something late. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Do something like that to make it look good. But that is what I'm going to do. I don't feel like they need to give up a future first rounder. I really don't. So I know Titans fans will probably say, no, get a future first rounder. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But it's only moving up 2 spots. I think that's very fair, especially in this draft class. I don't see a quarterback that is like outstandingly worth that number 1 overall pick. So this to me is a win for the Tennessee Titans because you're getting an extra second round, extra day 2 pick in general, which they only have 1 right now. They need more draft capital. And for the Giants, they need a franchise quarterback, clearly, cut and dry. And I'm going to do that here with Cam Ward. Shedeur Sanders, very interesting too, but I think Cam Ward, a little more arm talent, a little more explosiveness in his game. Brian Dable, coach out some of those decision-making woes, and ultimately can be that franchise quarterback. Let's at least hope so for the Giants. They need something. On to the Cleveland Browns at number 2. You know what? We're going to trade here as well. And for Cleveland, I'm telling you, the machine learning, I was going to do the Jags. I'm not even joking. This is getting scary now. Google's probably listening to me out here. But I'm going to move up with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm going to give up, let's go with this Minnesota pick that they got. Maybe we'll do the pick 70. All right, make those Cleveland Browns feel a little bit better. Jaguars fans are like, no, we wanted to go a little bit less. I understand that. But we'll do something like that, moving up 3 spots for Travis Hunter. He is worth that pick. He's worth giving up a little bit extra draft capital. And remember, the Jaguars have extra draft capital this year. They do need it. But at the same time, they need a stud. Like, they need like core pieces like Brian Thomas. They need somebody else there who can help on the offense, of course, but on defense, right? They need a cornerstone on that defense besides Josh Hines-Allen and, Trayvon Walker. And obviously, you got some really good linebackers in the hooligan, Fulasada Luakan, and also Devin Lloyd. But I think that you added somebody into that secondary, and that's going to really, really help out this defense even more. He'll play corner full time and play on money downs of the receiving role, give Trevor Lawrence another weapon, and help out the secondary. On to the Tennessee Titans here at number 3. We just did the Jaguars, but now let's get on to the division rival, Tennessee Titans. I'm going Abdul Carter. Not taking a quarterback here. I'm just going BPA. Maybe they get a quarterback in free agency, whether it's a Kirk Cousins, whether it's Sam Darnold, you name it. There's some quarterback options out there. I'd rather go get one of those guys, Russell Wilson, etc. Especially with Brian Callahan, where he's at right now in his coaching staff. He's probably looking for a guy that can come in right now and give him a chance to get to the playoffs right away, right? He may be on the hot seat this season. So drafting a rookie quarterback could be a challenge. So, and we've seen a lot of times where these coaches, they draft rookie quarterbacks and maybe it doesn't quite go. Look, most of the times it doesn't go like Jaden Daniels. Okay, that's an anomaly. So we can't expect that. A lot of times, though, these coaches, they draft these quarterbacks and then they end up getting fired that year, and then they have a new coach come in with that quarterback. So unfortunately, that's what happens a lot of times with these coaches. So maybe saying, hey, let's go get a veteran. Let's try to win as many games as possible. Let's get to the playoffs, see what we can do here, and build something from there. And then maybe we can draft a quarterback after that. On to the New England Patriots at number 4. I do struggle with this one a lot because Mason Graham is calling me. He's saying, please, draft me, please. And I like Mason Graham a lot. But I do think in realism terms, they're going to go with offense. I think Tetairoa McMillan, Will Campbell, or an offensive lineman, Kelvin Banks Jr., it makes a lot of sense for them and where they're going to be looking to go to help out Drake May on this offense because it is priority number one. So I'm going to go Tetairoa McMillan, give them a true number one boundary wide receiver, and also can play in the slot too, versatility there. Going to really give Drake May another weapon. On to the Cleveland Browns now after the trade down at number 5. And I'm going to do a Cleveland Browns type of move here. I'm just going to go BPA. I'm going to go Mason Graham, the interior rusher from Michigan, the Wolverine, on that defensive line with Michael Hall for the long haul. Like, that's an elite 1-2 punch. Michael Hall, what he showed at the end of the season especially, he was getting after the quarterback consistently. So you pair him up with Mason Graham, who's a really good run defender as well. That is a great 1-2 punch on that defensive interior. I mean, Tomlinson's still there, but that's your rotation. Shelby Harris is under contract for another year as well, but he's coming off injury. So I think you just continue to bolster that interior pass rush some more and defensive line depth in general. Let's go on to Vegas here at number 6. Here's a shocker move, right? We're not going quarterback. You think you're going quarterback? Not so fast. I'm going Will Johnson, the cornerback, another Wolverine off the board, back-to-back Wolverines. I'm going ahead and taking a cornerstone in the corner position. It's been a huge problem. Maybe their biggest problem on the defense, though, whereas obviously quarterback is their biggest problem there. And I fully understand the quarterback conversation, Shedeur Sanders. I think Shedeur, look, I'm not convinced that both of these quarterbacks are going to go top 10. I'm really not. I think one will, but ultimately, will both go? I don't know. That's where I'm really, it's just too early in that process. We need to get into the off-the-season stuff, the interviews, the combine drills, and all those things. That's really where you're going to start seeing more or less where these scouts are going and where they're valuing these quarterbacks. But for me, Shedeur Sanders is a guy that I feel great about in round number 2 or even in the back end of the first round. Do I feel great about him top 10? I don't feel great about Cam Ward either, but I can get behind the traits if you have the right developmental process and team, coaching staff, etc. So those are just some things I'm kind of painting out. But you get Will Johnson, get somebody in that secondary because it is a major problem for them on the outside. I mean, you got some guys that have been able to step up. It's like Nate Hobbs is a free agent as well. On to the Jets here at number 7. A couple of interesting options for the Jets, but when you're staring at the board here at this point, also PFF just updated their big board. We'll talk about some guys that have been moved up this board. I'm so happy they moved up Mike Green. Oh my goodness. I'm telling you, Mike Green is a guy that I think could end up, he's going to go high. He really is. After watching his film, I wouldn't be shocked if he goes above James Pierce Jr. I really wouldn't. But going back to the Jets here, I'm getting a little distracted. It's between Malachi Starks and it's between one of these offensive tackles. The thing that comes back to me every single time, though, when you're in a little bit of an uncertainty / rebuild period, I always say fortify the trenches. When in doubt, you pick the trench player. I'm going Will Campbell. I love the idea as a Jets fan of just bookend tackles for the long haul, right? For the next 8-10 years, Fashanu looks like a massive hit, in my opinion. From what I've seen, I really like Fashanu a ton. And at that left tackle position, Will Campbell over at right tackle. He has experience at right tackle going back to the high school days where he started there. You go ahead, fill that offensive line. You're feeling really, really good about your future quarterback coming into this offensive line and being able to be protected. On to the Carolina Panthers at number 8. This is BPA. And you know what? I talked about this earlier. And I mean what I say. Well, I still think James Pierce Jr. probably goes above Mike Green. There's a serious conversation to be had here. I think Mike Green is still severe. I mean, PFF, I think, just came out with a video and Connor had him at like number 2, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I think he had number 2. I love it. Mike Green is that good of a player. He legit is a top 10 type prospect. I'm taking him here. I really am. I just went back and watched the film today on Mike Green and James Pierce Jr. I was just watching both of these guys because I was kind of curious. I'm like, all right, let me go watch a game of both of these guys and see which one I like better. I kind of like Mike Green. I like James Pierce Jr. a lot too. I think Mike Green has a little bit more leg drive to him, and he's better in the run game as well. Like, I think Mike Green can step in right there and at least be a tough-nosed run defender early on in his career, whereas James Pierce Jr., he's just not quite there yet, and he's going to be a great pass rusher. Don't get me wrong. I still like James Pierce Jr. He's going to go very, very soon here too, but I do like Mike Green a lot. Carry on here to the New Orleans Saints at number 9, and for the New Orleans Saints, so many different options as well. Just like, the Jets as well. Like, they're in a team where it's a lot of uncertainty here. I do like going trenches. I think that is a very valuable area for them to look. And as I talk about, when there's uncertainty, the quarterback situation, the organization, coaching staff, like all those sort of things, build the trenches up. You can never go wrong with that. And that is what I'm going to do here. So it's tough which guy you go after, but for me personally, I'm going to go after somebody that I really think that'll help them out of the tackle position for the long haul. Josh Simmons, the Ohio State tackle there, going to be either right tackle or left tackle, gives you versatility, so that allows him and Fuaga, you just kind of stick out the best man at each position, with now both of them having experience at the right tackle and left tackle positions. Going to really, even though I used the wrong hand when coordinating that, but that's what it's going to be. Maybe if you're looking at it from the video length, it might make more sense actually. But now let's let the head coaching carousel really begin, because now Todd Monken, Ben Johnson, all going to be available. And the Bears, I imagine, are very much in the cards for both of those guys. I think Todd Monken makes a ton of sense for this team. If Monken comes over here, you better believe, you watch out. I think he's going to want to go get his Derrick Henry or go get somebody. I'm not saying, look, Swift is a really, really dynamic player. Get the ball in his hands in the receiving game. Roschon, nice goal line back, rotational player. But Jeanty is a difference maker, right? He is truly that guy. That you talk about offensive line too with the Bears, and you say, yes, that is a top priority you need, but they've got a lot of cap space, and I'm telling you right now, they're going to address some of those issues. 100%, they're going to go out and spend some money on that interior of the offensive line. I'm telling you right now, that organization will get scrutinized if they don't. The coaching staff, they're going to be like, hey, let's beef up those trenches. Let's go get some help there. Trey Smith, etc., you name it. There are going to be guys they're going to be able to go and get free agency. Obviously, that is the number one need. I don't disagree with that, but I think Ashton Jeanty is a sneaky need for them in their run game. It's going to help out your quarterback, Caleb Williams, in many ways. You see what having a tremendous run game does, especially in the playoff period, and obviously not just in the playoffs. And now where modern NFL offenses and defenses are going, it just makes a lot of sense to go get that power. That power dude there with Ashton Jeanty, and his speed is unbelievable. On to the 49ers here at number 11. This is one where it's either offensive line or it's edge rusher. I am going to go James Pierce Jr. here. I go offensive tackle a lot. I think those are the top two needs. It's interior, it's edge rusher, and it's tackle or offensive line in general. But I would lean towards tackle. I'm going to go James Pierce Jr. Kelvin Banks, to me, I'm kind of on and off whether or not he's a tackle or a guard. I like Connolly actually better, so I would go Connolly if I was really looking at a tackle for the 49ers, and actually be a nice fit for them too. But I'm going to go James Pierce Jr. He can develop. He can get stronger for a season behind Leonard Floyd and Yetur Gross-Matos. He doesn't have to start right away on the outside, but you get more pass rush in there early on as a situational player. And then year number 2, he can do like that Nolan Smith situation, get stronger, get better at the point of attack, and be more of a complete player. Moving over to the Cowboys here at number 12, and this is a pick that I do over and over again. Now, I really do think it's close, and I like that they are very, very close on the PFF board here, 10 and 14, Abuka and Luther Burden. Both are really good football players. Now, they are very different in ways. However, I think Burden gives you that yak upside, a little bit more athleticism, more explosiveness to his game. Abuka's no slouch, though. I'll tell you that right now. He's a better route runner, too, in my opinion. Very good football players. I'm going Burden here. Just, again, that yak ability. You pair him up with CeeDee Lamb. They need another weapon in the offense. That is just, I think that's the top priority as you go into this offseason. Safety could be a sneaky need. Malachi Stark's really interesting option too. Saw that, but literally there was a bird that just flew right on, or like a flamingo. I have no idea. I'm not really good with animals, but there was something that just flew right in the back of my car over there. Now it's over there. Unbelievable. It scared the guy. I'm like, why turn around? Is somebody trying to hijack me right now? Oh my gosh. Anyway, I'm like, come at me, man. I'm mock drafting right now. We mean the business. Giving them the business. Personal foul. Not on the Chiefs, on to the Miami Dolphins here. For me, for the Dolphins, it's between adding like another corner in there. Need to get younger. They've had a lot of injuries at the cornerback position. Benjamin Morrison sticks out for a pick for me. Malachi Stark's in their safety position, especially if Holland ends up walking in free agency. Poyer, I don't expect to be back. Offensive line, huge need though. And that's where I say, you cannot, interior defensive line, unfortunately, Miami has a lot of needs, and they may have to start saying, look, we need to embrace this rebuild a little bit more. I'm going to go offensive line, though. I'm going to go Kelvin Banks Jr. I'm okay taking Banks because they need an interior player, and I kind of like Banks on the interior. Not saying you don't give him a shot at the tackle position. Him and Patrick Paul can compete it out, but you move Banks inside the left guard, and you're helping your offensive line. The Indianapolis Colts here at number 14. And, of course, it's the Tyler Warren show, right? And I think it's a great pick for them, but it is one you see over and over and over again. I'm sure the Colts fans are blue in the face, and for good reason. Tyler Warren is a really good player. And I think it makes so much sense in Shane Steichen's offense, too. They play a ton of 2 tight end sets. They need another weapon that can be more of a reliable wide receiver, and he can also block as well. I love the move, but I'm going to do something different here. There's a guy close to my heart, Benjamin Morrison. We'll see if he makes his decision after the national championship. I think he has up until like the 25th to make that decision. I'm really excited for the national championship, by the way. But I really love Benjamin Morrison, and he is that true number 1 corner. I can't pass up on the value. I think you're getting a severe discount in the mid-first round on Benjamin Morrison. To me, he's a top 5 player in this class. I just love what he brings to the table. I would take him over Will Johnson if I knew the hip injury and the shoulder surgery he just had. Like, those are the big questions. But, now that Gus Bradley's out, let's go finish off the secondary. Let's continue their defensive line they've added to. Leatu Latu, of course. You got Odengbo coming along. He is a free agent, but I expect them to retain him or at least try. Morrison can be that stud, true number 1 boundary corner. Yes, they've gotten some nice play out of Warmack and Jalen Jones. So, yeah, you got Brent's coming back, but I think that you add in a number 1 guy in Benjamin Morrison, it just makes those guys even better. And you also have to remember, the Colts play a lot of bend, don't break defense in Gus Bradley's scheme. What if they, the new defensive coordinator wants to get a little bit more aggressive? I think that's going to expose maybe some of that cornerback play. So getting a guy like Benjamin Morrison that can really cover one-on-one, I think that just makes, that's what I want at least. I don't know. I love Tyler Warren too. I think that's a great pick as well. On to the Atlanta Falcons here at number 15. And for the Falcons, is there a pass rusher on the board here that I feel great about? That's where it gets really interesting, right? Or what should we pivot a little bit, right? There's definitely different options for the Falcons. I'm not saying they have to go pass rusher. I still like somebody though here. Now, you're probably going to look at this and say, oh my goodness, this is outrageous. Donovan Ezeraku. I've been watching so I'm also going to be real. I've been watching edge rushers lately and going through my rankings on the edge rushers specifically over this weekend. And Donovan Ezeraku was the one guy that stuck out for me. And I said, I'm moving him up way above Mikael Williams, Shamar Stewart, like all of those guys. He is way better, in my opinion. Way better. Oh my gosh. Yes, he's a little small. Yes, he's a little undersized. He is such a good dynamic pass rusher. He's got a plethora of pass rush moves. His spin move is dangerous. And you know what? You talk about that Micah Parsons inside counter that he does so famously, that he wins with consistently over and over, that lateral agility that he has. Donovan Ezeraku has some of that, okay? He's not maybe as strong as Parsons is, but he's pretty dang strong for his size. I'm telling you right now, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I think Ezeraku is going to rise up boards insanely amount here very, very soon. I don't think this is a reach. I really don't. I think he's better than Mikael Williams and these other passers, Shamar Stewart. The captain, Jack Sawyer, really good player. I don't think he has the upside maybe as some of these other guys, but he's a really good football player. Nick Gordon's a really good option too if you want more of a stronger side guy. I just think that they need a true edge. Donovan Ezeraku can give them that, be that 10-sack guy off the edge. Let's go on to the Cardinals here, number 16. I got to explain this process real quick. And the reason why I choose interior over the edge position for the Cardinals, because a lot of people ask me that, why don't you go get a pass rusher off the edge? And I totally understand that. But for trading Baron Browning, maybe he doesn't get re-signed for them and maybe they just let him walk. I think they're going to try to retain him, especially the way he played at the end of the season. You got Savion Collins under contract. You have BJ Ojulari, when he gets healthy, can give you another pass rusher. I personally like the idea of getting a veteran in the room, a guy that's more established that can come in right away and help that edge position. And at the same time, that interior, they've invested more in that interior. I mean, they did invest in Darius Robinson, but at the same time, that interior, you got Justin Jones, you got Bilal Nichols. They spent a good amount of money. And both of those guys, after this next season, I don't know if they're going to be on the roster. They need a big fella on that interior. I think that's where Kenneth Grant comes into play, and that's the way that I'm going for the Cardinals. And that's why I lean that way, going after someone like Kenneth Grant. And it's close. I think between Kenneth Grant, you go Mikael Williams. I don't know. I don't know who I would take at this point in those guys. Nick Gordon. I'd probably go Nick Gordon over Mikael Williams, even though Mikael Williams has a little more upside. It really depends. But Kenneth Grant will be that big stud at that nose one tech position. Next pick is straightforward for the Bengals. Don't need to really explain this. Now, I will say guard is a huge area that they need to address as well. But I do think they can find some really good value on day two. Even at safety, they could find some really good value. No matter what, I think the Bengals are in a good position going into this draft class. They need to add, I feel like, a pass rusher too in like free agency. Like that's the way I lean. And then you go out and you get a safety, you get a offensive guard in this draft class to help out, build those trenches on the interior, get some help in the secondary. They've tried with some options in free agency, haven't worked out. They should have re-signed Jesse Bates, but unfortunately that didn't work out. I'm going to go get a true stud in Malachi Starks in the back end. Versatile playmaker, could play even a little bit in the slot if they need him to. They should be good there. Anyway, even Mike Hilton goes. I think they can figure that all out. But Starks does give you versatility, going to be a really good playmaker for them in that secondary. On to the Hawks of Seattle. There's not much else to say. It's offensive line. Now, look, there are other areas that they can go, and depending on what decisions they decide to make in free agency, that will shake up some things for sure. But with the emergence of Kobe Bryant, I don't think that safety is a huge need in the first round or anything like that. So even if Malachi Starks was available, you don't need to force something like that. You look at what else is on the board. Tyler Warren, interesting option. Noah Fant, they could move on from him. But you do have A.J. Barner. Is A.J. Barner like Tyler Warren level prospect? It's tough to say, right? Of course, I think Barner will be a solid tight end. I think Tyler Warren could be an elite tight end. So that could be an option too for them. Maybe you add in a Tyler Lockett replacement, get another wide receiver, especially if you're looking to move on from DK Metcalf and his contract. So there are options depending on what they do. But to me, what comes down to be the biggest issue, it's the offensive line, right? The tackle or the guard position, improving that interior, running the ball more consistently has been such a headache watching this football team. They'll have a new offensive coordinator, but you need to start the engine, start the keys with some help on that interior. Go get a big, bad monster in Tyler Booker. Go over to the Cannons here in Tampa Bay. And for Tampa Bay, edge rusher actually going after and just recently doing a full mock draft rebuild on them. I really like Braswell. I was watching film on him. I'm like, dude, this guy's going to be really good. I'm not saying he's a true number one pass rusher, but I think he's going to be very productive. So between him and Yaya Diaby, you need to add to the room. And that's where I'd say you go out and you spend a little bit of money there. They've got a little bit of cap space that they can work with. Plus, they got a lot of maneuverability. Jason Light's really good with that as well. But I think that they're going to be able to add a really, really nice solid pass rusher in free agency. And then on day two, there's a lot of quality depth. I don't know if I feel comfortable saying that I'm going to find an immediate upgrade either here with Mikael Williams, Shamar Stewart, Jack Sawyer. I mean, Jack Sawyer is good. Nick Gordon as well. They're good players. I think the biggest needs really going into the offseason are actually at linebacker and at cornerback, at least on the defense side of the ball. Those are the two areas that I would really be looking to target for this football team. And there's a guy that I like on the board here who really fits Todd Bowles' system to a T. And that would be Siobhan Revel, the cornerback from East Carolina. I think the value, too, of Siobhan Revel, his upside, his talent is so tremendous. You don't have to work him in right away. And this would also set them up to either to maybe trade a Jamel Dean at the trade deadline, which could be a realistic option for them. He is getting a little bit older now. He's been a little injury prone. Very good cover man. Let me not state anything like that. He has been a tremendous cover man. When he was in there guarding Terry McLaurin, when he was out versus when he was in, it was a night and day difference. And throughout the season, like Jamel Dean is a stud. So I don't want to say he's a bad player or anything like that. He really is a good football player. But you do have to start thinking about the cap situation. They can move on from his contract really, really easy, save some money, and that would allow them to pay an edge rusher, etc. So those are all options on the table for this Buccaneers team as well. I think Revel makes a lot of sense for Todd Bowles in that defense. He's exactly the prototypical build and style of corner that Bowles likes in that cornerback on the outside. So that's the way that I go. I think Jihaad Campbell would be an excellent pick there as well. On to the Denver Broncos here, number 20. There's a guy at this point. There's two guys that I would feel great about here. And it does depend on what they do in free agency. Now, they got a lot of young guys at the receiver position. So I go back and forth in this. Like, I still like adding another weapon for Bo Nix at the receiver position. I think that's a huge area that they could go after. It depends what they do in free agency. Once again, do you go tight end or do you go wide receiver in the free agency market? Or do you just feel good about Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims, as those guys continue to step up, Vele, etc. I'm going to go Tyler Warren here. He's going to be an exceptional playmaker at that tight end position. Let's say they don't get a tight end in free agency. Well, you go out and you get Tyler Warren to be that true number one guy for Sean Payton and expect him to really try to find another weapon at that tight end position. On to the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 21 overall. I'm going to go ahead and add a wide receiver here or a cornerback. Those are the two areas that I see as the biggest needs. And I would just say you go BPA between the two. Now, cornerback-wise, I'm looking at guys like Jahdae Barron. I think Jahdae Barron is a perfect fit for what they need in that slot position. Beanie Bishop can be your dime backer. And Beanie Bishop's really good, and what he's had, proven as an undrafted rookie is definitely somebody, promising you want to keep on the field. But I do think Barron would be an immense upgrade for sure because he gives you inside-out versatility. So Bishop will definitely be playing, and that allows Barron to play inside out. And obviously, Barron could even play safety if they wanted to, because remember, Deshaun Elliott going to a contract year, Minkah Fitzpatrick going off a bit of a down year, and he's also being paid quite a bit. So Barron would be a good option. I'm going to go with Emeka Egbuka, though. Yeah, you could say, well, is he a little bit like a Roman Wilson? They're different football players. And Emeka Egbuka, I don't think he's a slot-only guy. Same thing with Roman Wilson. Like, neither one of those guys are slot-only targets. They can play inside out. So you're just adding more weapons, especially with George Pickens, and I don't think he's going to be re-signed after this season. So I want to make sure we add another reliable target for whoever is the quarterback for this football team. Like, I don't want any quarterback to come in here with the weapons that they currently have right now. On to the Bolts at number 22 overall. Very tough decision, because to me, this is between Colston Loveland on offense and a defensive guy, right? Like, they need some more pass rush for the future, because you look at their contract scenario, Khalil Mack, a free agent. Joey Bosa is kind of in the decline at this point, plus he's expensive. He's going to be going to a contract year. Those are a lot. I mean, you got Tui Tuipulotu. He's a solid number 2 pass rusher. Do they have that true number 1 guy to replace those guys? I don't think so at the moment. Their interior could be possibly in flux as well, with a lot of guys being free agents. When it's all said and done, though, I think after you look at the playoffs, especially where they got exposed the most was at the receiver tight end position, the drops. You got to get better. You got to get another weapon for Justin Herbert. That's what I'm going to do here. Colston Loveland, the tight end of Michigan. Yes, the Harbaugh connections. It is what it is. I know the cop-out, but I do think it is a huge need for this football team. And then on to the Green Bay Packers here at number 23 overall. The two areas that stick out the most for me for this football team to be looking at Gutekunst, I think defensive line and I think cornerback. Even though wide receiver, I do think should be in play. We'll see what they decide to do. I think those are the two areas they look at. And I would just look at it as BPA. And I will say Trey Amos here is very, very interesting. You got Jahdae Barron, I don't know, Azaria Thomas, all very, very interesting options. I'm going to go with a guy that I think that they're going to look at and just say, oh, we can develop those tools. And they're a team that they really go with that developmental cycle of like 2 to 3 years. That's really their thing. I'm going to go and take Mikael Williams, a raw prospect, but with a lot of traits that you look for that can be a dominant pass rusher with the right development. And then on to Skull here at number 24 overall, Minnesota Vikings. I actually do agree with their needs here listed. I think running back, guard, interior defensive line, and cornerback are the biggest needs when you go into this draft for them. All here is, and you really are going to have to, when you really look at this in the grand scheme of things, what do you feel like you can find the most apt at? Because especially with where they're at, I mean, ideally you can trade down here, and that could be a possibility. We could look at a trade with certain teams here to maybe maneuver down the board. Found a good team to do it with. It would be with the Kansas City Chiefs. And you're saying, oh no, what are you trying to do to the Kansas City Chiefs? You're trying to make them even better? Well, heck yeah, man. And it's the same way for Minnesota, trying to get an extra draft pick here, especially on day 2, because their draft capital, as you can see, it's a little barren. It's a little thin. All right, even though Barron would be a good pick for them too, I know. Anyway, let's go ahead and make this trade happen. Pick 66, 32 from KC for 24. This scenario for Kansas City to trade up, go get the tackle that they need in Josh Connolly Jr. He is my guy in this class. I am a huge fan of Connolly. I think he's one of the best pass protectors too in this draft class, and that's exactly what the Chiefs need. Joe Thuney's been solid at left tackle, and you could keep him there, but he's getting a little bit older now, and then more ideally, you keep him at left guard. You get Connolly to be that true left tackle, to be that blindside protector for Patrick Mahomes. Very athletic guy, and he's gotten stronger this season tremendously. He's also an underrated run blocker. People say, oh, he's not strong enough. He's actually not a bad run blocker, but he's going to be really, really nice for that blind side for Patrick Mahomes. And then on to the Houston Texans here at 25. I think it's either interior of the offensive line or it's interior of the defense line. Like, those are the two areas that are sticking out most to me for the Houston Texans. I would consider somebody at the wide receiver position. Like, if somebody falls there that you cannot pass up, then, oh, absolutely. Like, if a Emeka Egbuka or a Luther Burden falls to you, then that makes a lot of sense. However, I'm going to go and I'm leaning towards interior of the defensive line. It is a really, really tough call, but I'm going Tyreek Williams. I like him a lot. I think the value at 25 is just too good to pass up. He's going to be a no-nonsense, plug-and-play starter for D'Amico Ryans in that defense that already plays hard, but Tyreek Williams plays hard, and he's going to be a really good run defender with some pass rush, a little bit of pass rush upside as well. On to the Rams here at 26, and see, by the Kansas City Chiefs, I was trying to jump the Rams is what I was really trying to do for the tackle position. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get the Houston Texans to trade back. You see what I'm saying? Because they just beat them. Maybe there's a little bit of a grudge. So that's why I moved out with the Minnesota Vikings instead. So with that being said, the Rams at 26, tackle certainly in play. Now, is there a tackle that I'm looking at here? Armin Embu is more of a guard in my eyes. He could be a right tackle. He does have the length. Ariante Ursary, possibly there as well. It's a little early for me, so I'm not going to force this pick here for the Rams. This is another team that I think would make a lot of sense to try to trade back. So that's what I'm going to do here. And you know Howie Roseman, he loves to get a little aggressive. He also trades back a lot. There's a lot of maneuverability with Howie Roseman, but I'm going to do that here with 26 for the Rams to 31. That's what, 5 picks you move up, the cost of that. I am going to throw in, let's do pick 63. We'll do a pick swap. So it's going to be 63 for 90 and obviously 31 for 26. That's what it's going to be here to give the Rams a little bit earlier of a day 2 pick while the Philadelphia Eagles don't lose any draft capital. It's going to be a bolster because the Rams have that comp pick as well. So that's going to help them out later on late day 2. But it allows them to come up there and maybe get a corner, get, a linebacker, et cetera, whatever offensive tackle, maybe an Ariante Ursary at the back end of the second round, et cetera. But the guy that I'm going to move up for here is just exactly Howie Roseman special. Going back to Georgia, let's find him here. He's somewhere down the board. I know he's fallen, and I actually do agree that I feel like he was being drafted way too high, like top 10. He's dynamic, and I love the athleticism and the ability to drop back into coverage. But he is raw. Like, he needs to be taught some pass rush moves. He's going to have to get stronger, too. There's just a lot of things that Jalen Walker is going to need time. But this is a team that will allow that development and allow that time off the edge. And what they were able to do with Nolan Smith, hopefully they can do the same thing here with Jalen Walker in a very similar molded, different prospect, but definitely can help them out, be that long-term edge succession plan with, of course, Josh Sweat being a free agent. Brandon Graham maybe retires after this offseason. So you find your running mate for the long haul with Nolan Smith, and Bryce Huff's still under contract, but maybe you need that another guy. You need that third guy, especially early on. For the Baltimore Ravens, I'm looking at 2 areas here specifically, either offensive guard, maybe even a wide receiver, possibly as well. However, not super worried about that with their offense. I think maybe offensive line would be the bigger priority of the 2. And then defensively, I'm looking at adding in another interior hybrid edge rusher, defensive lineman, like a 5-tech. I love the idea of Nick Scorton with his inside-out versatility. So these 2 picks, or Shamar Stewart, also a really good option as well. I think he can develop like head-over tackle in that 4-eye, 5-tech role as well, because they are a little thin on that interior. And the pass rush wasn't always consistently, at least from, in my eyes, watching the games this season for the Ravens. I think that is something that they need to bolster up. Their offense line has been really good, I will say. So that's why I'm going to go with the defense side of the ball here. But I do like Armin Embu. I think that would be a really good pick, too, for them. So with this pick, I'm going to go Nick Scorton, the pass rusher from Texas A&M. I think he gives you that inside-out versatility and going to be very, very strong at the point of attack. Very young player. He's one of the youngest prospects in this entire draft class. And the value makes a lot of sense at the back end of the first round for the Ravens. Detroit Lions, well, with Armin Embu on the board, Jack the captain, Sawyer on the board, those are the 2 areas that I'm probably looking at. And it actually is a tough one. What was the problem for the Lions, or the reason why they lost it really was the injuries and obviously the turnovers. That's the reason why they lost that game versus the Washington Commanders. They just had too many turnovers, right? The fumbles, the interceptions, the pick 6. It caught up to them. And the offensive line maybe didn't have their best game of the season either. That Commanders defensive line did a good job. That got to give credit to the Commanders. And then obviously on defense, I think the injuries caught up to them. Like, that's just what it is. The amount of injuries caught up to them at some point. That's what happens. When you get in the playoffs, you face these tough teams, you got to stay healthy. And that really, unfortunately, did them in, I feel like. I like Armin Embu a lot. I think that'd be a great pick. I'm going with the captain, Jack Sawyer. I know I'm sucker. It is what it is. Get the suckers out here. I like the green flip. The green apple is always my favorite. I just think Jack Sawyer makes so much sense. The type of player Dan Campbell looks for, he fits, checks every single box. A team captain, a leader on that defense. He's going to come in there, and with him and Aiden Hutchinson, obviously you still have Za'Darius Smith, Josh Pascal. That's your rotation going into next year. You have depth, which was a huge problem for them. They just couldn't get after Jay Daniels consistently enough. They couldn't bring him down. Like, that was also a problem. But I just think Sawyer is an excellent addition to add into their defensive line rotation. On to the Commanders here, 29. Man, let's go Commanders. Woo! This is such a fun seat. This is why I love football, man. You just see teams like the Washington Commanders come from nowhere and do stuff like this. And I'm just so excited to see how they match up against the Eagles, a division rivalry. Like, that's always a good game, too. Like, even when the Commanders aren't the greatest team, I think that's always a fun game to watch. Now, with the need here for this team, you're looking at wide receiver, offensive line, defense, defensive line, should I say, pardon me, edge rusher specifically. Those are the top, and then linebacker. I think linebacker is a sneaky area for them to look at as well. And there is a linebacker on the board that I really, really, really like. I'm not going to lie. I really do like someone like Jihaad Campbell. And he also could be a hybrid edge rusher, too, for them. That is who I'm going with. Jihaad Campbell, Alabama linebacker. He's got insane athleticism, sideline to sideline, tremendous size. His coverage ability, too. Like, he is a better coverage linebacker than a lot of guys in terms of that feel in the back end. He has that natural feel, especially for these hybrid guys who, like, you feel like could be edge rushers or linebackers, like Jalen Walker. I think his coverage feel is very, very raw at the moment. Like, as a traditional linebacker, I wouldn't want to put him in that role. Jihaad Campbell, I'm comfortable putting him in a traditional linebacking role, but he is also a guy that I feel good. Like, Frankie Louvu can be a situational pass rusher for this team. He's got the size, he's got the length to do so. I really think Campbell for this Commanders team would be an excellent addition. And with Bobby Wagner getting a little bit older, while he's still very, very good, Frankie Louvu, etc., like, they need some more help for the long haul. And I think that Jihaad Campbell would certainly do that. And then on to the Buffalo Bills here at number 30. And you know what? We're going to trade down at this point. Now, I was foreshadowing this earlier, moving up with the Raiders. I didn't force this. This is not something I said, well, let's just let Shedeur Sanders fall. I think this is legit the value on these quarterbacks at this point. And this is where it starts to make sense to go after a guy like Shedeur Sanders. At the back end of the first round, you get that 5th-year contract. This seems like the place he wants to play to. So maybe they can even get a value on that if he says, look, I want to play here, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not worried about any of the off-the-field stuff with him. I'm strictly talking about the film with Shedeur Sanders. I do worry about the arm talent in certain areas like Pittsburgh. And that's why maybe I didn't go with Shedeur in Pittsburgh or Cleveland or some of these other areas, is in those colder environments. I do worry a little bit more about that arm talent. Like, there is to a point where some traits, it does matter a little bit. And I have to look at that. That is an important factor in things. But for the Raiders, you play in warm weather majority of times. Go get Shedeur Sanders here. The pick is going to be a 3rd rounder from the Jets. They have to give that up. But I think that makes sense to come up here for a quarterback. And that is what we're going to do. We're going to go grab Shedeur Sanders, get that 5th-year contract for that Vegas Raiders. Tom Brady, the new organization, whichever coach, if it's Ben Johnson, whoever. I think Ben Johnson ended up being the head coach for the Raiders. That's my guess at the least at this moment. And obviously we got a cornerstone player with a corner with Will Johnson and with their first pick. On to the Rams at 31. Rams, I'm looking at linebacker as a big need. Okay, now with that trade back, maybe we can target a linebacker around 2. I don't know. I will say I'm glad they added Demetrius Knight. I like him. I watched a lot of South Carolina games. He's a stud. He needs to start getting some recognition. Not quite sure. I haven't gone through and specifically watched him one-on-one every single snap. I've just watched the games, and I know that Knight is a playmaker. He can cover guys as well. I'm going to go with the corner, and actually we just passed him. Jahdae Barron, the corner from Texas. Let's add some cornerback help. Let's add somebody that can be a nightmare for opposing defenses to have to go against. I think tackle's certainly a play for them as well, but I think that cornerback is something that they've been trying to fill with stopgaps over and over and over again, but Barron can certainly add a true number 1 type of corner. To the final pick of the draft at number 32 overall, Minnesota Vikings. Let's finish this thing off with a banger. Look, there's a guy that I really, really like. Well, safety, there's some really good players I like really too, but Azaria Thomas, Florida State cornerback, huge fan. We're going to see him at the Senior Bowl. This is really going to determine whether he's a 1st-round guy or a 2nd, 3rd-round guy, etc. But the traits are there of a 1st-rounder. He has good athleticism. He's probably a 4'4" guy. He's got long arms. He's big. He's 6'2". He's a little thin. He needs to work on his tackling. Those are the 2 things. And he just didn't get targeted a whole ton. Look, teams knew about Azaria Thomas. Like, watch out for number 8 over there. He makes plays. He can cover. He'll blanket you. Man coverage, one-on-one. He can stonewall guys. So I think you add him into that secondary. Bill, they have a lot of free agents. Stephon Gilmore, Byron Murphy, all free agents. They need help at that cornerback room. I think it makes a lot of sense. So here's our draft. A lot of trades. I love the trades. Trades are so much fun and it makes things really interesting. Here's our draft, though. Overall, let me know what you think. Agree or disagree? What would you do differently for your team? I hope you guys have a really cool day, and we'll be back with a bigger mock draft